Comp safari racing is one of the toughest forms of off-road motorsport. Drivers and co-drivers race against the clock across rough terrain from open fields to forest tracks. But it's not just about power. Navigation, precision and endurance decide who crosses the finish line and who doesn't. Now, I've been watching from the sidelines for quite a few years now, and I always promised myself that the moment I got a chance to have a go, I'd grab it without hesitation. And I'm pleased to say that the opportunity has presented itself, and this is what I've bought! Now, granted, I can't just get into it tomorrow and take it for a race. I mean, it's not even got an engine in it. So over the next few months, or however long it takes, I'm going to be building this car into something that is ready for the tracks. And over the last few years, whilst I've been involved in the sport, I've trying to be building up in my head what sort of car I will build if I got given the chance. And that is 100-inch wheelbase Tomcat with an M57 on Discovery 2 axles. Now we can tick off two of those things. We can tick off Tomcat and we can tick off M57 because I think we just about know how to do that. What we can't tick off is 100-inch wheelbase because this is a 93-inch wheelbase, and we can't tick off Discovery 2 axles because this is a chopped up Discovery 1 chassis. Luckily, however, I have a Discovery 2 chassis just over there, and that fits Discovery 2 axles and the 100-inch. So my ingenious plan is to chop the cage off this chassis and go and weld it to that one over there. Does mean quite a bit of metal work, but you know, I like that. The first job was to finish stripping the new chassis of its body mounts, unneeded suspension mounts and engine mounts, so that it was ready to receive the cage. Then we moved on to chopping the cage off the old chassis. I was trying to be careful not to lose any material from the cage's structure itself, and because the chassis was scrap after this point, it often meant chopping a square of the chassis out round where the cage was welded on so that I could grind the excess off afterwards. Otherwise the cage would have just sat wrong on the new chassis. And after approximately 10 million Milwaukee batteries and double that in cutting and grinding discs, it was complete. Now, the keen-eyed viewers will have noticed that there's a bit of gap in time here. And in that time, off camera, I've chopped the rear of the Discovery 2 chassis off and welded the rear of the other chassis on instead. And that gives us the Defender rear crossmember to work with when we come to rebuild the tub section of the cage. And then after many hours of careful measurements, it was time to put the grinder down and pick up the welder to glue the cage to its new chassis. Here you can see me making new rear hoop mounts out of 5mm steel. These really need to be solid because in the event of a roll, it's likely this is where most of the force will go to. And to make sure I was doing a good job, I had a visit from our in-house fluffy project manager.
Are you watching what I'm doing? Oh, you're so cute there. Yeah, you are. Come on then.
The final job, of course, was to chop the old tub section of the cage off, as it was now too short for the new wheelbase. Right, there you have it. The cage is mounted to its new chassis now. The only thing left to do is to rebuild the tub section. I can't do that until my new wings arrive, because obviously this section is longer, the wheel's in a different place compared to this A-post here. So you need new wings. Just to demonstrate, this is the old wing, and it sits roughly like that, and you can see that the wheel just isn't in the wheel arch anymore. So once the new wings arrive, which is going to be 6 weeks, I'll be able to build the tub. But don't worry, because there's plenty of other things to be getting on with whilst I'm waiting. Now actually, at this point, we're basically back where the car started. When it first rolled into this workshop, it kind of looked like this. And it seems like a lot of work that we've done already to be basically back where we started. But it seems like a good opportunity at this point to tell you what we're actually doing here. So the M57 we have proved in the road cars. It's a fantastic engine to use in the road cars because it's just really smooth and really reliable. Now what we want to do is prove it in the race cars. So this car is going to have M57, obviously, 8-speed gearbox, and around about 380 horsepower, which means it'll be an absolute weapon, and hopefully it'll do really, really well in these races. That'll prove the M57 engine to the racing lads as well. Now, it's just tipped over into November, and the racing season starts round about April, May next year, which means that we've got around about 5 months to get this car ready for racing. And it sounds like a long time, but I think if I sit here for much longer, it's not going to be ready. So the next job to do on this is the engine, and that's over here. So here it is, M57N, so that's the steel block out of a E53 X5. That's the facelift model, so it's a 218 engine. Currently mated to a 6-speed automatic box. Now, when we took the engine out of the car, the gearbox actually had a fault on it, so it's actually ready for the scrap bin. But for the purposes of what we're going to be doing with it today, which is making engine mounts and gearbox mounts, it's perfectly fine. So we're going to put this engine in today, and then when the car comes back to bits, we'll put this engine on the stand and do one of our comprehensive services on it, just so that we can be sure that this engine's good before it goes racing. There's one final piece of the puzzle, and that is the transfer box. And I have it here. And anyone who knows about LT230 transfer boxes knows that this is a particularly light one. You couldn't do that with one that was full. And I've just got an empty one for mocking up purposes. There's no gears or anything in there. It's just really, really light. So we don't have too much trouble with manoeuvring it about. So let's crack on. I spent a good time messing with the position of the engine because there are different things you have to think about with a race car rather than a road car. The main thing being that the engine needs to be as far back as possible to improve weight distribution and as low down as possible for centre of gravity reasons. I actually made the decision to tilt the engine over slightly to the driver's side so that I could sit it slightly lower and not have the alternator fouling on the chassis rail. All in all, it ended up being a pretty tight fit on the bulkhead and between the chassis and the alternator. Now, if this were a road car, I would be slightly concerned about these small gaps because the engine moves around as you're driving down the road. But for this, the engine and gearbox mounts are much more solid and will hold the entire unit more firmly in place. Once one gearbox mount was complete, it was a simple rinse and repeat on the other side. And with the gearbox mounted, it was time to start on the engine mounts. And thanks to my fantastic video editing, this mount only took 18 seconds to make. Something I'll explain in a little bit more detail shortly is that most of the welding on this car will be completed much further down the line once the car comes back to pieces. So in this case, I haven't actually completed these engine mounts, but it'll be easier to do them once I have a bare chassis to work with, rather than working around the engine. For the driver's side mount, we did have some preparation to do, as we'll be fitting a hybrid electric actuator turbo to this engine, which is mounted in a slightly different location to the original. I had to swap it to make sure that the engine mount we made would be compatible with the new turbo. And there we go, the engine is in, and that unfortunately marks the end of this episode. If you'd like a sneak preview of the next episode, you can see we've started putting the interior in and some of the front body panels. For now, I've had to push it into a corner so I can get on with some customer jobs. But just before I let you go, I can hear you thinking, Lawrence, what are you doing building it in that state? It's green, it's rusty, it's dirty, it's horrible. But I've got a plan on that. So what I'm doing here is doing something that I like to call a dry build. And basically what that means is that you make all your tabs, your brackets, your mounts, everything you're going to need when the car is built before you start painting anything. And granted, it doesn't look particularly nice, but once you've finished it all, the entire car comes to bits. You service the engine, gearbox, axles, everything, get everything blasted, painted, so it looks really nice. Then build it all properly. There is a hell of a lot of work to do before that point, and I cannot tell you how excited I am for that. So we'll see you in the next episode for a bit more progress.